This is the Athletic Football Show.
Welcome to the Athletic Football Show. I'm Robert Mays. Joining me tonight, it's my good friend Nate Tice. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. That was a game. That was a game, but congrats.
You stole my joke. I was gonna say of all the games that have happened this year, that was one of them. It certainly was one of them.
That was a capper. That felt like the capper. We started the first live stream of the season was Lions and Chiefs, and a bit of a barn burner.
This one was different.
Yeah, a little bit of difference here, but we did see a playoff team tonight. We did see a playoff team, and that was the Cleveland Browns, led by finishing with some Flacco chants. Wow, what that's 2023. Start with the Lions win at Arrowhead, and here we are in the last Thursday stream of the season, again with some Flacco chants to finish off this to lead us into this nightcap.
The Browns have had 4 starting quarterbacks this year. They clinched a playoff spot week 17. That is the story of the Cleveland Browns season. They deserve a lot of credit. Deserve a lot of credit for how they've handled this season, how they approach the offseason. We'll dig into some of it, but I think Kevin Stefanski deserves to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year. We'll have that discussion over the next couple weeks. One of the reasons I think he definitely deserves it is, I was thinking about this during the game, these teams are the same. If you look at the broad strokes of where these teams are, they're pretty much the same. They came into the season high-priced quarterbacks that they paid a lot to go get. That quarterback got hurt at some point during the year. The Jets decided that their approach to this was going to be, our quarterback got hurt. You know, what are we supposed to do? Our quarterback got hurt. And I think privately, that's how they were handling a lot of this. This was going to be a do-over year because Aaron Rodgers got hurt. There was none of that going on in Cleveland. They were trying to be proactive. There was nothing woe is me about this. And you could see it. These teams carried by their elite defenses, one, managed to find answers on offense because they have an offensive-minded head coach and a good offensive staff, and 2, because they kept chipping away at options at quarterback. Another team never found those answers. The Browns are going to the playoffs. The Jets are going to be watching from home. I know that there are nuances within that, but if you look at the broad strokes, that's what this game felt like, and that's what the season has felt like from both of these teams.
And even just the pass catchers they added, like just this offseason. You know, the Browns, Elijah Moore got hurt tonight, but they're trying to boost the core of pass catchers and pass rushers.
The Jets got rid of Elijah Moore, and the Browns traded for Elijah Moore.
Well, yeah, right there. That's the difference. They decided, hey, we're going to boot Elijah Moore and like, see, we're giving up on him. Okay, let's bring in Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb, and we'll be good there. And oh no, let's not draft Cedric Tillman in the 3rd round. No, we're good. We got our pass catchers. We're all set there. And that's what it just always felt like. As soon as Rodgers got hurt, they were just like, oh shoot, that wasn't supposed to happen. So now what? And
what were we supposed to do? Our starting quarterback got hurt. And then you could also take it one step further. Our offensive line is a mess. Okay.
Right.
The Browns are on offensive tackles 4 and 5, and they're shredding you throughout the first half of this game with Joe Flacco, who was on your roster, who you could have called the moment that Aaron Rodgers got hurt. You decided not to. Now you're watching from home. Now they're playing in the playoffs.
Or even just teams like the Vikings, like, you know, doing what they did with Dobbs for a bit, and Mullins, and just trying. They're just trying to scrap together wins and trying to have inspired game plans and everything. And that's what, I mean, commendable to Breece Hall. He and the defense, they just been playing hard, and it felt like tonight. It felt like the Jets defense finally had enough. Like that's what really just that.
They played hard in the second half. They ended up stopping the bleeding in the second half. And there were a couple wonky plays. You know, some extended plays from Joe Flacco. It was a weird half. I think the Jets defense deserves a lot of credit for how hard they played.
This entire season they do. I feel like we've tried to repeat it because they could easily have thrown in the towel weeks ago when they made 5 quarterback switches. It felt like just between, just revolving who it is. It's like, okay, it's a day that, okay, this was or it's a half moon. Okay, so that's a Zach Wilson start, right? That's what we're okay. It's a full moon. Okay, or that's Simeon. Okay. That I feel like that's where they're going. They're going off a lunar chart of when to start these guys. But no matter what's happened, is the defense is just, I mean, just try to do something, try to make plays. I've watched a few of these performances, what they did against the Dolphins, what they did against the Falcons recently, and they just made these games a slog. And it was like, hey, if they did weren't the Browns doing that in the middle of the year? Remember those games where gum and toothpick offense? And hey, we got to commend Bill Callahan and Kevin Stefanski. They're trying, and then Flacco's getting hot again. And it's just, they deserve this because they tried. And they deserve to win double-digit games because they're actually earning these wins. They have a dominant all-time unit that, sometimes doesn't feel like it, but it really is. Statistically, it is. This Browns
and they've
defense.
been banged up. Those guys been on the lineup for them all year. Denzel Ward's missed a couple games. Juan Thornhill missed a couple games.
Yep.
They're getting production from undrafted free agents that are having pick sixes in this game that had to step up because Thornhill was hurt for a chunk. So I think that they've done a really good job of piecing this thing together. My question for you is the Joe Flacco element of all of this. Is this merely we're having a good time watching him trot back there and chuck the ball downfield? Or do they actually have a shot at surprising some people in the playoffs because of the element that he gives them at quarterback?
I think they definitely have a chance to surprise somebody. Right now, they played the Jags in the first round. I feel better about the Browns than the Jags.
Okay, beyond the Jaguars, this is similar to whoever plays the NFC South winner in the NFC is probably going to be okay. Beyond beating the Jags, is there anyone else that you think that they can scare if they were to get into the divisional round?
The kind of top three, the Chiefs, Dolphins, and Ravens, I would not feel as good about, but their defense is going to keep them in games. What is the ultimate neutralizer? A very good defensive line. And even with Okoronkwo being hurt, they have so much juice up there on top of a defensive player of the year candidate, Myles Garrett. I think that defense keeps them in games no matter what. And I just think the offensive plans have been sound every game. I mean, yeah, they had the tip pick six. Flacco's going to have a couple turnovers, but because he pushes the ball, look at that first throw to Njoku on the first drive on the over route when he's moving to the left. That high variance is going to give him a chance. Yeah. That's what you need.
I'm fine living that way. And that's how it felt from the beginning. From the moment he got put into the lineup, it felt like the high variance and the volatility was worth it with their defense.
If you have a backup or just some scroungy quarterback that you're just trying to slap together, that's what you need. You can't nickel and dime, especially in the playoffs. It's try to create, hey, we hit 3 explosive plays for touchdowns. We got 1 pick six, and now we got 28 points right there.
1 sack fumble.
Boom. And then you're in the game. That's what the playoffs are. And again, the good teams, of course, is ability to pivot, but where the Browns are at right now, this is how they have to win in the playoffs. And I actually think they can do it because they have the mortar launcher back there. That's always giving them a shot. Dude, oh my God, the bootlegs are cracking me up.
It's really funny.
Usually you only bootleg to the left when you have a good athlete, like at Wisconsin. We had Chili was our naked protection working to the right, but that was only in for all of us. And then Russ, when all of a sudden Russ transferred theirs, all of a sudden Bernie protection came in, which is boot to the left. It's because, not a lot of guys, I wasn't very athletic to really boot to the left when I also have someone in my face. Flacco's just cranking it back there. Oh, just oozing back there and just turning and just launching throws. And I'm loving it because it's just working week after week. This is like 4 straight weeks. He's hit these kind of shots on teams. It's awesome.
This is really funny because if you want to take it all the way full circle, Gary Kubiak was in Baltimore. Remember those Gary Kubiak offenses for the Ravens? He was there for 1 year. He was the offensive coordinator before he went to Denver. Okay. And so Gary Kubiak was in Minnesota. And when Kevin Stefanski decided that he was when Kevin Stefanski got his opportunity as an offensive coordinator, even though he didn't really know Gary Kubiak, this was before Kubiak got there, he had always said, I love that style of offense. That's what I want my offense to be. So they had this keeper-based play action offense. And now Joe Flacco gets dropped back into this offense that he's really comfortable with.
It's like riding a bike.
Has flashes of what Kevin Stefanski has always wanted to be. So that connection is actually pretty funny. There's a similar bit of that on the other side of the ball in this game. So I tweeted this out during the game. The Jets have had trouble with the Browns over the last 2 years. They did fine in the second half because the Browns really had no one to throw to outside of David Njoku in this game. But they've had trouble against the Browns over the last 2 years. The Jets, against every other team in the league, are either first or second in EPA per play on defense. It's one of the two. It's second at the very least.
Okay.
Against the Browns, of the 22 teams that have played against the Browns, they are 21st in EPA per play on defense. The only team that is worse is the Chargers.
Okay.
And talking to people this summer with the Jets, they do not like playing against Stefanski. There is just something about the way that offense is structured that they hate going against.
I love that stuff.
The irony of that is that the reason Kevin Stefanski hired Joe Woods to be his defensive coordinator when he came to Cleveland is because of what Robert Saleh did to him when they played against the Niners in the 2019 playoffs.
Funny. And it's just like, hey, screw that. Like, yeah, that was when Dan Quinn hired Kyle Shanahan. That's what he said. It's like, I was tired of going against that offense. So why not hire the guy that made it such a pain in the ass? It worked out for him. It makes sense, though, because the one Bill Callahan's run game right now, especially, they like to do a lot of the pit pull stuff and get their offensive line on the outside. They're one of the teams that run it the most, if not the most. That can give issues to this Jets defense because of the fronts and stuff they run. So it's something naturally that can get, okay, so that's our fastball is one thing you struggle with. Okay, that's already boom right there. Yeah, and probably some of the play action stuff like you've talked about. And I'm sure
play
that
action, the shifts. It's a lot of the pre-snap shifting, what they do at the tight end. It's just like
the tight end stuff, yeah.
Little tiny buttons that they press. And Kevin Stefanski deserves a lot of credit for understanding, okay, our defense just lacked something over the last couple years. We needed to do something to give this thing a jolt, to bring it back to the Joe Woods part of this. Going out and getting Jim Schwartz, I think, was as much about changing the mentality of that unit as it was anything else. One of the reasons that they went with Schwartz over some of the other guys that potentially they could have hired is they wanted to keep the defense structurally similar to what they were doing with Joe Woods. Let Myles Garrett play in a 4-down front, keep him comfortable. But it was really about changing the mentality because if you look at like the DNA of this sort of defense, that wide 9 attacking defensive system that the Niners run, that Chris Kasurek runs, that comes from Jim Schwartz. Like there is shared DNA there. Jim Washburn in Detroit, who Chris Kasurek learned from, was a Jim Schwartz disciple. So there are a lot of kind of intertwined pieces here, but the attitude and the way they wanted this team to play, I think that is the biggest boost that they've gotten from hiring Jim Schwartz and letting him oversee that side of the ball. And again, one more point in the Kevin Stefanski for the Coach of the Year argument, because he went out and understood that they needed that sort of element on defense.
It makes sense too, because it's also the Stefanski being a true boot guy. The wide 9 stuff was not invented, but leaned into to stop all that. So it's the classic, like, I'm tired of facing this. I'm going to get the guy that like gave me such a chore in the past. No, it all ties together. I mean, those Lions defensive lines, man, around 2011-ish with Sue and all those
Sue, Nick Fairley, Kyle Vanden Bosch, those teams were fun.
Cliff Averill. Yep. Oh my God. They, because my dad was a line coach, especially too. I remember they had to play, I want to say it was 2011 at Detroit. It was like the first night game in Detroit or national TV game in Detroit in years. And oh my God, that was one of the biggest. Yep. That was one of the biggest Hornets nests, like Lions Den games ever. Like the Bears had no shot. Like just how raucous the forward field was right away. It's one of those games where I was like, I'm watching on TV. I remember I was in Madison. I was like, nah, they're not getting this one. Sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry, Dad. But really, it's just really funny to watch those Lions, because I remember the Lions coaching staff coached the Senior Bowl, and that was my first experience with Chris Kasurek. Backwards hat, glasses on, I believe, never stops yelling and just goes. And my dad gave him kind of a little tap and goes, hey, good job out there. He's like, hey, thanks. But he's just like, that was my first experience, was the Senior Bowl when he was with the Lions. So it's so funny you're bringing this all up.
He would have been the assistant defensive line coach, right? Because Jim Washburn was there.
And I think they bumped at the Senior Bowl I went to. I think they just bumped him up to D-line coach. I think he had just gotten it, like literally like that month, like because it was the Senior Bowls in January, So I think it was like 2012ish, 2013ish. But yeah, no, it's just funny. And that was some years later I put it together. I was like, oh, that was Kasurek. Like it makes a ton of sense. That guy was awesome.
The defense is what was holding the Browns back over the last couple of years. Them not getting enough out of that unit and the talent that they had on that unit. I know they added some pieces this offseason, Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, etc. But the way that the secondary is playing, those guys were all there as outside of one Thornhill. And the energy is just different. And that's another thought that I was having while watching this game. I kind of just wish they had never traded for Deshaun Watson on multiple different levels. Right. From a likability perspective, from a resources perspective, what if the Browns just had Jacoby Brissett this year?
That's it.
And you could watch them play with Jacoby Brissett. They'd probably be just as good or better on offense. Every single great vibe you get from watching the defense would be the same.
The most
How would we
likable
think
dude in the
about
league,
talk about
Jacoby
this Browns
Brissett.
team?
I know, most likable dude in the league, Jacoby Brissett back there and playing a top 10 offense last year. It was the most frustrating thing. I just have still pull my hair out about it. No, I agree. That's why I was so giddy being able to talk about this team without having that feeling over it and just getting to watch Flacco and enjoy it.
It is nice. It is
I'll
nice
be honest.
being able to watch them play without having to watch him in the game.
I'll be honest. And yeah, and I think he's played better. that was
the offense has been better. The offense has been better with Joe Flacco in there.
I'll say it again. Watson's numbers were the same as Ritter's. I mean, so take that as how you will. But I will it's a great point that you bring about the defense and that their energy just starting week 1 against that Bengals team. That banged up Bengals team was just palpable. It was like, holy shit. I knew I was optimistic about this Browns defense, but it was like, oh my God, this is going to be a thing. And it felt like it, especially, I mean, then just look at the numbers again. But Martin Emerson, his growth from year 1 to year 2 has been great. I just watched him take it to the T. Higginses of the world and actually these real deal receivers and actually take it to with an attitude. And like you said, it's palpable. Watch every blitz with JOK or whoever else they have in there with their linebackers. Those guys hit the gap so hard. They're like taking turns. They're trying to show off. It's like when we watch like a really good AAU basketball team, they're like ooping. They're throwing the oops in pregame, and then you're on the other side going, "Oh no!" But it's like that's what
that Tennessee game. That's what that Tennessee game felt like, where they had that stretch where after every single play, you just saw those celebrations, and just a strange place for this team to be because there's so many elements of it that should be feel good. Is them getting to the playoffs with this unit, being banged up, fighting through everything they have so far, and you could look at this and say, okay, well, when their starting quarterback gets back next year, what could they be? And with this team, I don't care to do that. And I don't even think it's that exciting to imagine that.
No,
because if you look at it, there would be other situations like this where you think, okay, the starting quarterback got hurt or it didn't work out. They just move on from him after the year. You pivot, you go find another option. What could this team be with just average quarterback play? That's not going to happen. He's going to be back. They can't move on from him at any point over the next 3 years. So this is what this thing is going to be. And there's just something about that I find disappointing. I just wish that was not the case on multiple different levels. So that's what the Browns' future looks like. The defense is still probably going to be pretty good, but we're going to have those questions about what the quarterback is and about what he prevents them from doing resource-wise.
Even just outside the Watson stuff, what they did, the reflection that they shown with their defense this past year is just maybe really kind of go oh, okay, this Browns regime's okay. You guys are it's clicking. I don't know. It just made me more optimistic about the stuff that they kind of lean into. I just want to kind of say that though. I felt like the self-reflection they've made was pretty good. Especially all the defense, all the stuff we talked about.
I 100% agree.
You know what I mean? It's just
that's the frustrating part about this is that
I know
the job that Andrew Berry and Stefanski have done at 52 other spots on the roster is probably the best job you could have done.
It's just you want to get giddy about it, and that just overhangs. And that's the thing. I just want to enjoy this iteration of the Browns because it's just again, it's not going to last. It's going to change right back.
I hesitate to even bring it up, but I feel that again becomes one of those thoughts that's hard to ignore when you're watching this team and you're watching.
It's a real thing, though.
It's a real thing. It is absolutely a real thing that affects the way that I think we talk about and think about this team. So that's what their future looks like.
Yep.
The Jets' future, we're going to see.
Run it back.
We're going to see because everything that they have tried to sell and everything they want you to believe about the way that this season has gone is that, okay, we're going to drop Aaron Rodgers back into this thing and it's going to be all systems go. Okay. Where are the pass catchers? Where's the offensive line? You only have so many resources this offseason with a 40-year-old quarterback to improve those areas. How many guys along the current offensive line are you bringing back next year?
Oh, center. And then what
Tomlinson,
else?
maybe because you paid him.
Tomlinson pay. Yeah, is he still under a deal? Yeah. That's it. Tippmann. And I'm just trying to think who else would they got? Because Becton fell off. He had a flash for a month. I mean, I'm just trying to even think. I think they have another rookie in there. Probably do. But I mean, just even think the whole offense. Garrett Wilson, of course, is a nice piece. Breece Hall, great piece. But like you just said, I had them in our mock taking J.C. Latham from Alabama, who's a nice right tackle. Okay, that's one lineman. I think they need 3. And on top of it, probably one more pass catcher. I like Jeremy Ruckert, a young tight end. They have, Conklin's done some nice things for him, but it's I don't know. That's 4 pieces already. They're not going to have a second round pick. That goes to the Packers. And they've already paid Lazard. it's just it's gonna be interesting how they navigate this, especially what they know that they've committed to.
You're going to have to be pretty aggressive because the window is not very long. Even if you believe him in that he's going to play beyond next year, I think that there still warrants a decent amount of urgency in terms of what you're going to do. You can rebuild an offensive line in a year. It's not easy, though. It's definitely not easy. And the other big discrepancy when you watch these teams and you think about these teams is the infrastructure and the ecosystem that they have built on offense independent of the players. The Browns have been able to thrive, succeed, survive this year because they have Kevin Stefanski and Bill Callahan, right? The Jets don't have that. You have Aaron Rodgers. So next year, Aaron Rodgers has to be your quarterback. He has to be your offensive coordinator, and he has to be someone who makes your offensive line better. And that's a lot of bets that you're making on a guy who's going to be 40 coming off an Achilles.
I was wondering when I would ever talk about this, but the fact he has a headset and not an earpiece is always gets me, because there's a finite amount of headsets that you can have on game day. So like with a mouthpiece that you can talk, and every time they show him, that thing's up and he's shaking his head, never once talking. And I've been kills me because that meant a coach had to give that up. That meant someone on the sideline had to give up their headset for him. And I've been just the inner dynamics of that, it just cracks me up, because every other quarterback that's in there, they just have the little earpiece without the megaphone on there, because usually you just go right next to it. And
just one more thing that you're making a bigger deal than it needs to be with Aaron Rodgers, Nate. Just one more thing. You just have it out for Aaron Rodgers.
That's me, right? Do you see Nick Wright's rant?
I did see Nick Wright's rant.
It's a pretty good one.
That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about, and that's what's hanging over this team. As we get into next year,
they enabled them to do this. This is the bet they made. They said, "Hey, we're betting on you. Take us to the championship." And in the NFL, I get it. There's different bets you can make. That was the bet. This is the one that they made, and this is what the repercussions of that they have. It can be good, but there are repercussions.
And again, do you contrast that with what the Browns are right now, with what the Vikings have been for stretches this year, where the bet that you're making is not on a single quarterback. It's on everything else. It's about the infrastructure of the organization. And I think that it's easier to feel better about those teams and what they have done post-quarterback injury than it is about what the Jets have done and honestly where they're going. Because you can absolutely try to tell yourself a story and talk yourself into everything being fixed when he comes back next year. But it just feels like there's more going on than that. It just feels like there's more that needs to be fixed and there's more that needs to be addressed. And I hope they understand that. I hope that they get that it's not just about the Aaron Rodgers thing and the Aaron Rodgers part come back. And I think that's the reflection is a really good way to frame it, because I think that there's a level of self-awareness and a level of honesty and humility that comes with this. And I think everything that they did at the quarterback position aside, the Browns have had that as it relates to their roster over the last 12 months. And that involves this season with all the injuries, and it involves this offseason when they were thinking about what they needed to do to right the ship. And I don't think the Jets have brought the same sort of scope or mindset to the way that they have approached their team and their roster over the same time period.
Yep. I think the humility stuff is a huge thing. And that's why it's sometimes that turns into creativity, and sometimes just throw resources at it. But at least understanding that you have to do that it works. Like, you have to do it. And that's what team building is. It's not just the quarterback, it's the team. And you have to have the defense, and you're making it dependent on that. But also just this game, it felt very fitting that a Jets-Browns game that we wrap it up this way. But also you have 2 pick sixes, a blocked punt, a failed punt in the sense that it was a surrender index account breaker, a 99.9er on their percentile rankings about surrender index tonight. So it was very fitting that we had that kind of sloppy first half. It felt nice, at least for Jets-Browns. It felt nice that that's how we cap off a Thursday game.
Derek Klassen said during the game that he didn't feel like this game was canon, which I thought was a very good joke. I was trying to come up with a good non-sequential set of movie sequels, like which one just ignores the activities of the previous ones. I think Rocky Balboa is like that, because in Rocky 5, wasn't he never able to get hit in the head again because he had some mental brain injury?
Yeah, and it was something with his son, like he was training his son or something like that, or no, he had some protege, like that he was working on, like
was Tommy Gunn was in Rocky 5. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I don't think we acknowledge that any of that stuff happened when we get to Rocky Balboa. So that's one option.
There's
the Halloween movies.
There's a Star Wars Christmas movie or Christmas special, which is not canon. But the Halloween movies, that's a great one, because there's Halloween, which is the sequel to Halloween. but you have to ignore the other movies that were called Halloween.
There were like 7 of them that happened in the meantime. So that was the that was the
and they're all
joke I
called
made.
Halloween.
This game was just Halloween H2O or Halloween 5 or whatever you want to say. This
We
is
watched
not canon as it
H2O.
relates to
We
anything
did.
else.
We actually ended up watching it. Well, I ended up watching it. It's it's a movie of its time. I will say that it's very much that's my one-liner. It's a movie of its time.
The haircuts will tell you all you need to know about that. That's what makes it a movie of its time. All right. That is all we got. Sincerely appreciate you guys joining us for all these Thursday night silly games that we've had this year. We enjoy doing these shows, and we only do it because you guys come and hang out with us. So sincerely appreciate that. This will be available as a podcast, where that's a special holiday gift that we've given you guys over the last couple of weeks. So if you want to re-listen to this or let someone know that it is available not on YouTube, you can also do that. We will be back on Monday for our week 17 recap, not on Sunday night. Sunday night is New Year's Eve, so be looking for this on Monday midday is when our week 17 recap will be available, similar to the timing this week with Christmas. Apologies for that. Just, this is what happens around the holidays. We appreciate you guys understanding. Our week 17 preview is available wherever you get your podcast. A couple really good games. We've got Dolphins, Ravens, we've got Lions, Cowboys, and we talked about 4 more games that have pretty significant playoff implications this week. So make sure to check that out. For now, that is all we got. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you soon.